Good afternoon. My name is Gillian Balaban and I am Governance and Board Liaison at GRI. Welcome to this meeting of the Global Sustainability Standards Board, known by its acronym, the GSSB, being held on 19 March 2026. This virtual meeting is being hosted from Amsterdam, the Netherlands. Please note that all public GSSB meetings are being recorded, and you can find the audio recording on the GSSB meeting webpage, along with the high-level summaries of previous GSSB meetings. Present from the GRI Secretariat today are Bastian Buck, Chief of Standards, and Tamar Zalstra, Senior Manager Standards. We will now start a roll call. Anne Lindsay.
Present.
Charles Chu.
Present.
Chilandra De Silva.
Present.
Deborah Ng.
Present.
Felipe Martinez Rodriguez.
Present.
Galia Tisankova.
Present.
Thank you, Galia. Igazuma Okoroba.
Present.
Jeff Robertson.
Present.
Rebecca Coriat.
Present.
Tomu Machuba. Yan Dong.
Present.
Susanna Muscat-Gorska.
Present.
And GSSB Chair Carol Adams.
Present.
Thank you, everyone. GSSB members Anna Nefedova and Julia Genuardi sent their apologies. I will now hand over to the Chair, Carol Adams, to open the meeting.
A warm welcome to you all. Thank you very much for being here, and thank you, Gillian, for doing that roll call. Our first item for the day is to approve the draft summary of our meeting on the 20th of February. Can I ask whether anybody has any comments on that draft summary? And Jeff, if you could help me notice if anyone has their hand up, that would be great. Thank you. I'll do my best, but I can't see everybody on my screen. Okay, so there are no comments that I can see, so I'll take that draft summary as approved. Thank you all. And the next item is to review the action register. As we go through it, if anybody could let us know if they have any comments. Bastian, do you want to make any comments on the updates, or can we take this as read?
No. I don't think there's developments between last meeting and this meeting. It is now the cleaned up version as we had signaled I had signaled at the last meeting of things that are still pending and that we're taking now into the second quarter. So we will continue to update that and raise it with you.
Okay. Does anybody else have any comments on the action register? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to an update on policy. Bastian?
Yeah, so this is one of the things that we're doing through the local engagement. We have provided an input or a recognition more, is probably the better description of the ambition in Indonesia to look at reporting regulation that combines actually impact and financial materiality. And our policy team has recognized that in the public domain, and we've also engaged the relevant governmental entity on it.
Okay, thank you. Any comments on that? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the project implementation update, and passing again to Bastian, if there's anything that you want to highlight here.
No, I think there are no developments in the first months, specific in the implementation of the project, that would warrant a discussion about what has happened during those 3 months. As shared last meeting with the GSB, we're now looking at a significant change in capacity. And unlike in the last updates that we've provided, we've not projected into the future how we look at the next milestones, and importantly also the final approval. That was something we've agreed with you last year. We need a bit more time to reconfigure our project schedule in line with the now existing capacity in the team. But we're confident that towards the April meeting, we can provide the overview, and that the next project schedule update will be just in the regular format, that we have a full overview of how we're projecting each of the running projects into the future. We're focusing this update now also primarily on the standard setting related projects, because this is where the team is now with reduced capacity putting its efforts, and the upcoming discussion about the feedback that we're receiving on the work program, and then the discussion about what we accept in potentially also as guidance projects, research endeavors, and so on, that fall outside the due process. Then we can add that at a later stage to this project update.
Okay, thank you. Can I just ask about the GRI sector program on the fourth row there? That did go to the governance bodies, as I understand it.
Yes, that is
Are you
indeed.
saying the revision is still to come, or still to be done, or?
So we're still waiting for feedback. We have a session scheduled next week to conclude engagement of the management board, and we're still waiting for a signal from the supervisory board whether, next to the feedback received from individual members, we will also have a collective response. And once we have that, then we will bring this together, and as we previewed in the last meeting, we would then amend based on the feedback received the proposal, as we do for all projects under due process.
Okay, thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions of Bastian, or any comments? No. Okay, thank you. So then we move on to the topic standard projects for pollution. And we have some exposure drafts to consider. We have made comments on the file stage, and I think Tamar is going to summarize our comments and the technical team's proposed actions based on those comments. Tamar.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me. So during the last year, we worked on developing these 3 drafts together with a working group of 20 experts representing the 5 constituencies globally. Next slide, please. So we would like to present 3 exposure drafts, one for air pollution, one for soil pollution, and one for critical incidents. So in the elaborated scope, which was approved by the GSSB last year, we had already mentioned these standards, where one of the GSSB members mentioned that critical incidents might have a polluting impact, but it might not. But it is still part of the project. And so how I would like to propose to present the work is that we have received feedback from GSSB members on air pollution and soil pollution, both, right, that were relevant to both. So I propose to first present these and then have a brief discussion on them. And then we can move on to the feedback on the air pollution exposure draft. We can have a bit of a discussion, soil pollution, short discussion, critical incidents, the same thing. And then perhaps either at the end, because the slides for approval are after the discussions per exposure draft, or we can hopefully approve at the very end or in between. I don't know, as you prefer. Next slide, please. I will start with the comments on. Next slide, please. Yeah, thank you. So I will start with the comments on both air pollution and soil pollution. It was try to align them as much as possible. We have received 11 comments that were relevant to both. Most can be implemented prior to the public consultation. But we have replied to all the comments that were received on the 12th of March before the end of business. Some we have to consider during PCP feedback for several reasons, either because they would ask for a bit more research or because it was discussed in the working group or it require going back to the working group. So they can be part of then the PCP feedback. Next slide, please. So this is a requirement that is both in air pollution and soil pollution, and it is aligned with GRI 102-2-C, the climate change standard. And it asks to describe the impacts resulting from the actions to reduce either air or soil pollutant emissions and how these impacts are managed, including impacts on workers, communities, and indigenous people, and biodiversity. And some of the comments were asked to add impacts on, which we now did. Some of the comments were related to people and the environment. This is the wording that we used from the climate change standard, but we're now proposed to delete them for this standard or this exposure draft. And then the public comment feedback will help us in navigating the other comments that were received and clarifying these comments, what we should do next. Next slide, please. Thank you. So we have received a comment on non-compliance with the limits of air and soil pollution, and perhaps to propose to perhaps replace it with exceeding. So again, the wording in air and soil pollution is aligned, and the guidance mentions that it can relate to legal or voluntary limits. So we propose to consider this comment after public consultation with the other comments. Next slide, please. Again, a comment related to both air and soil pollution. So in AP 4-A and SP-3-A, it is asked to report the percentage of its sites that have permits for air pollutant emissions or soil pollutant emissions. And the comment was whether it was relevant to report this requirement. And it does not take into account the size of the site nor the numbers of sites. So again, the wording between these two requirements was aligned. The guidance now, we've added to the guidance of soil pollution a recommendation to report the size of the sites. To the guidance of both air pollution and soil pollution, we have added a recommendation to report the numbers to come to the percentage, right? The numerator and the denominator, so that there's clarity on the number of sites. And the comment whether the requirement is relevant will be considered after public consultation together with the working group. Next slide, please. Well, we can pause here. Oh, no, well, we can pause here actually. Yeah, I don't know, because we don't want to go through too many slides. I don't know if there's any questions or comments.
I do have one. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Can I ask Tamar how you say you'll go back over some of these comments during the public consultation period, but how will that process work? Because once the exposure drafts goes out, we're getting comments on the exposure draft as it is, and you have to take into account those comments. How do you go back to the previous GSSB member comments?
So to all the ones that I've received before the 12th of March, we've tried to reply to all of them and check whether that was a suitable reply. So after the public consultation, which hopefully will take place until the 1st of June, we can take these comments received from the GSSB members that were not addressed here. We will take them on board and either do further research on them and take them to the working group, so they will be part of the discussion. As you know, we'll have the public consultation comments and then also the GSSB comments.
Okay, so members can think about what they think of that whilst Tomu asks his question.
Sorry about that. I couldn't provide the comments in advance. And with regarding to the air pollution, and like I want to clarify the relationship with climate change. And for instance, black carbon, it's air pollutant and listed here, but also having global warming effects. So how this can be linked and between climate change standards and this one. And also relationship with ozone depleting substances and such as chlorofluorocarbon, which is not included in air pollution, but also not part of the climate change. And but they have both, ozone depleting effects, but also climate change effect, and how this can be addressed here. And with regarding the soil, and I think it's quite, this standard is quite generic and compared with, this air pollution, which is listing the air pollutants. And maybe it's quite sector dependent, but for instance, like we could mention more specifically about soil remediation at the site closure, for instance, or like animal waste and the pollution to the underground water, for instance, or maybe we should more, talking about underground pollution for the drinking water or agriculture water, and to make it more, meet in the standard itself. Yeah, thank you.
This is a comment additional to comments that were made on file stage.
Yeah, if you could, and that somehow take into account this, that would be appreciated. Sorry for my delay.
Well, thank you very much. If I'm allowed to, Chairperson, if I'm allowed to reply to these. So when it comes to black carbon, it is indeed, there is a relationship to climate change. Also, there's a relationship between all, most air pollutants and climate change, because the sources or GHG emissions and non-GHG emissions, which we are talking about in the air pollution standard, is because the sources are quite often the same for these types of emissions. And for the climate change standards, they reference the Kyoto protocols and the pollutants mentioned there. So that's the GHG emissions, and black carbon is not part of that. So it is included here, even though there might be a relationship with climate change. We've looked at the WHO air quality guidelines that explicitly mention several air pollutants, and they are sector agnostic, and black carbon is a PM, particulate matter. So there's some overlap there too, but we mentioned them explicitly. So that was our authoritative source to list the pollutants in AP3. Then when it comes to ozone depleting substances, indeed, part of the revision process for this project was the existing disclosure on ozone depleting substances. However, it asks the current disclosure that we have doesn't ask for direct emissions, because in the project we're looking at primary emissions. So in the air pollution standard, we looked at the direct emissions, but it looks at the production, import, and export of ozone-depleting substances, which has a relationships to chemicals management more broadly. We're also actively following the global framework on chemicals and the implementation of that framework to see what else there are in terms of development that we can include and consider when looking at the revision of ozone-depleting substances. It's quite different. The ask is quite different from what we have in the current air pollution standard, right? It doesn't include the import, export, and production of chemicals. And then to the last question, I'm not sure if I fully understand it because it mentioned you mentioned underground water and animal waste. So I imagine that would relate to soil pollution. Is that correct, Tomu? Do I understand that correctly?
Yes, it's about soil pollution. Just I want to make sure, standard providing something, more substantial guidance on what soil pollution should be included here.
Yeah, so for the standards, we're looking at the primary emissions of pollutants by organizations. And so for soil pollution, we were not able to find a source that explains these are the pollutants that need to be considered as for air pollution, right? We had the WHO air quality guidelines that helped us. Whereas for soil pollution and soil pollutants, we have several lists that can be used. So that was included. So it wasn't made explicit, oh, please include this or that type of pollutant. But it's up to the organization to explain which pollutants they have considered or which lists of pollutants they have considered. Does that clarify?
Yeah, the other things about this, soil remediation issue, it's it should be kind of covered by some legal requirement in different countries, and so it's
Okay, can we leave that with Tamar, who is thinking on her feet here in responding
yeah,
to
sorry about this.
no worries. Jeff.
Thanks, Carol. Thank you, Tamar, and to the team in the working group for the drafts and for the responses to the comments. I'm not sure if this was the intent of Carol's question, but what Carol's question sparked for me was, if we're taking some comments away for additional research, are we at risk of requiring re-exposure after you complete the research and you want to insert some parts that were never exposed? And would it make sense, perhaps, therefore, to bring up some of these questions in the questionnaire at least, so that you would know or have some data about public sentiment about those questions?
Yeah, that was kind of my thought, that we're here to approve an exposure draft, and yet we're leaving over the comments that we're making. So that might be a solution, Jeff, with some of the key comments, especially if more than one person has asked them, if they're substantive, that they are covered perhaps more explicitly in the questionnaire. I do like the fact that the questionnaire asks things like, are there any disclosures we might take out to make this more straightforward and so on, but perhaps we could be a bit more explicit on some of the comments, especially repeated comments. Bastian.
Yeah, maybe just to come in here. So first to acknowledge that there is the possibility to highlight some of the contents raised in comments in the questionnaire, but we have to be very careful that we're not asking too many detailed questions. In addition, we have not so great experience with that because then also the focus is moving away from what's actually on paper to additional stuff. So if we can sort through that with that logic and prioritize within it, that makes sense. But that's my second point. Most of the feedback raised by GSB members can be addressed in ways that either we've settled it now in conversation, or it is something that is not fundamentally changing the drafts as we present them. So I think there's also proportionality. Maybe for the discussion today, if we can look to identify those things that we want to elevate in a survey format, right? As an outcome of the discussion, then the team can take that forward in that way. Thank you.
Can I ask, is everybody happy for the standards division to identify matters where there's a number of comments or where the comments have particular merit and weren't particularly addressed when you were considering them, that they go in the questionnaire? Is everybody happy to leave that with that process? Anybody not happy with that? Okay. Tamar, then if you could continue with the presentation, please, and we can revisit that issue later if need be.
Yeah, thank you very much. So for the air pollution standard specifically, we have received 36 comments, and many were implemented prior to public consultation. And we've replied again to all comments that were received before the 12th of March or on the 12th of March, and also whether we can consider them as part along with all the other BCP feedback. Next slide, please. So there were comments on requirement AP-2-D. For each air pollutant emission reduction target, report the extent to which the targets applies to the organization's activities, and the comments related to or varied from deleting the requirement to changing the wording. So we propose to include this feedback as part of the revision after the public comment, so that we get some more inputs and clarity on how this requirement is understood and read. Next slide, please. We've received a comment also to the guidance of this requirement, which asks, the guidance said, the organization can also report on the percentage that the emissions from these activities represent compared to the total emissions for that particular air pollutant. And the comment was that stakeholders will want to know how impactful that target is, so we changed can to should. Next slide, please. There was a comment to the guidance of AP-3-D about the feasibility of reporting the breakdown per site. Indeed, we have a question in the survey asking about how feasible it is to report on certain requirements. The wording, again, was aligned with SB, the soil pollution standards. So it's a question in the survey. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this is where we can either pause for discussion or maybe even go to approval if we prefer. I'm going to look at the chair.
Are there any comments? No. Okay. So then can I ask whether everybody is happy to approve the exposure draft? We can get to the questionnaire later. We've discussed a possible process whereby outstanding comments, we leave it to the standards division to put significant comments in the questionnaire somehow. Yes, I'm getting the thumbs up on that one. So is there any dissent on approving this? No. Okay, then I can take it then that this exposure draft is approved. Gillian, do we need to do anything else on that one?
No, Carol, not for this approval.
Okay, thank you. So moving on, back to Tamar.
Thank you very much. Okay, so then we'll move on to the soil pollution. So we have received 10 comments that were dedicated to the soil pollution exposure draft. Again, we've tried to implement as much prior to public consultation, and then we replied to all comments, including cases where we considered them along with PCP feedback. Next slide, please. Yeah, so there were comments on whether the list of pollutants could be added, as it was done with air pollution. So there is, with air pollution, we were able to look at an authoritative reference, which is the WHO Air Quality Guidelines, which lists a number of pollutants. But for soil pollutants, we have not identified such a list. Rather, we have identified several lists that can be used. And so these were added to the guidance, and organizations can explain which lists they have considered for reporting on this. Next slide, please. Well, that was one comment from the discussion.
Thank you. So can I ask whether there are any further comments on this before we move to approval? No. Okay. Can I ask whether we can approve this exposure draft? I'm seeing a few nods, no shakes and thumbs up. We'll take that as approved then. Thank you. Lots of thumbs up.
Okay, that's amazing. Thank you. That was a relief, I have to say. Okay, then we're going on to the last one, the last exposure draft. 18 comments before the 12th of March. Again, many can be implemented, and we've replied to all comments that were received before last Friday, including cases where we consider them with PCP feedback. Next slide, please. So there were comments on what a critical incident was or is, including a definition of a critical incident and whether they are related to pollution only. So in the GSSB work program that started this topic standard project for pollution, it was mentioned that the sector program asked to broaden the revision of the existing disclosure for significant spills to critical incidents. This is based on input from the sector program. And so when we discussed this with the GSSB, it was noted by one of the GSSB members that critical incidents might have an impact related to pollution, but it might not. And so it was decided to have it as a separate standalone standard that can be used to report on critical incidents that either have a polluting impact or other impacts. And so that helped guide the development of the standards. And so a definition of a critical incident was included, like a description was included in the background to the standard. And it notes that the scope is broader than only pollution-related impacts, and a sentence was added to highlight emergencies and accidents, so that it clarified what critical incidents, what is part of critical incidents. And a term and a definition, a formal definition is in GRI standards, they are included in the glossary only when they are used in more than one topic standard. So there's broader a description in the background than a formal definition in terms of GRI standards thinking. And requirement CI-1-A-2 asks for the process to identify incidents and determine whether they are critical. So this requires the organization to describe the what for them a critical incident is. And it could mean that for a hospital, it could be very different from, let's say, a waste management site or a transportation organization that transports oil, for example, oil vessels. And And then, well, as I explained, this was part of the elaborated scope, that it's not only pollution related. Okay, thank you. Next slide, please. Yeah, and that was one very fundamental comment to that standard.
Any
Right.
questions or comments on the let's say on Tamar's responses to your earlier comments? Anne.
Thank you very much, Tamar, and thank you for the presentation. It was just to understand how you've responded to one of the comments that I think Felipe had made around near misses, and that was often a very important part of learning and management processes in relation to critical incidents. So I just wanted to make sure I'd understood, to what extent that had been kind of reflected in your response or not.
Yeah, so the near misses are mentioned in the guidance because one of the experts, stakeholders that we spoke to also raised this, right? So that's why it's included. However, this is one where we feel like it needs a little bit more research. What I understood from Felipe's comment is that it could be added to the guidance, so it's not something that really fundamentally changes the standard, but it would be a preference to have a bit more research done on what is exactly a near miss and what is to be expected to be reported, so that we have some additional references. And we can also discuss it again with the working group, whether this is something that they feel needs to be included in the way it is precisely written, if you see what I mean.
Sounds like a way forward. And Felipe, are you happy with that? Yes. Okay, thank you. Chalendra.
Hi, Tawa. Thank you for the presentation and the draft. Just on one comment I had made, Tawa, on combining this into the enterprise risk management process. I just want to check whether that was incorporated, because I don't think that previous slide touched on that.
No. We didn't email, right? For transparency, we had a meeting. Indeed, there is now a sentence added to the guidance that asks for how this is embedded into the ERP, enterprise management system. Sorry. Yeah. I can email you the sentence if you like, Chalendra. Yeah.
And Tomu.
Hi, thank you, Tamar. I'm a little bit confused in terms of, like this pollution and air pollution and the soil pollution and all, reference to the incidents. Then here it's talking about critical incidents. So whether we are asking only critical incident and putting under these standards, or we are overlapping. And if we are overlapping, somehow we shouldn't overlap to avoid the repetition.
Yeah. No, this is a very important point, Tomu. Thank you for that. So in the background section to this standard, there is like the description, not the formal definition, but the description of what a critical incident is and what is part of that scope. And so it explicitly mentions emergencies and accidents with a low probability but high impact. And so for air pollution and soil pollution, it's a high probability, right? Or it's business as usual, just because it's part of a production process, for example. Whereas this really is about an emergency. So the first disclosure asks for emergency prevention, preparedness, and response. That is the distinction between these two.
Thank you. Are there any other comments, or can we move to approve this exposure draft? Susanna.
Yes, thank you very much. I just wanted to indicate that I very lately introduced some extra comments, and apologies to Tamara and the team for doing it late, but I just wanted to add some comments on possible more workplace specific examples, and I'm only talking about the guidance, so no changes to the disclosures. So more workplace context specific guidance on possible preventive measures, engaging with stakeholders, and internal documents to determine incidents as critical. So I hope they can be considered in a similar way as other comments that we haven't discussed in detail, but just to raise.
I mean, I'm happy to do it if the GSSB is also okay with that. For sure, I'm happy to answer, but also include them. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not like I know that it's like I think consideration is more at this stage is more you know the request than inclusion, of course, without discussion.
Okay, so is that something that can be handled at a later date?
Yep.
Okay.
I can include them. I mean, like after the meeting, and I can have a look at them. Yeah.
Okay, and maybe have a chat with Susanna offline then. I don't think anyone would object to that. Can I ask if we can approve this exposure draft? Okay, I'm seeing some thumbs up, some nods, no shakes, lots of thumbs up. I think we can take that exposure draft as approved. Thank you very much, Tamar, for all your work on those, and do thank the technical expert group for us as well at some point when you speak with them. So thank you. Let's move on. Oh, what about the questionnaires? There's no slide on the questionnaires. Does anybody have any comments on the questionnaires other than that we have already asked Tamar and the team to include in the questionnaire any questions which we have felt quite strongly about on any issues we felt quite strongly about, where there's been multiple comments on the same issue, which are best addressed to get specific feedback through the PCP process. Is everybody happy with those questionnaires on that basis? Okay, thank you. I do think they're asking some pertinent questions about the disclosures and doability and so on. So thank you very much for that. Okay, let's move on.
Yes, and I think this is the moment for me to step in, Carol. We're doing lots of formal business as you as the GSB together with us on the staff side, and this is also a formal agenda item, but of very different nature. We wanted to mark the occasion, the fact that you, Carol, are leaving your role as a chair, concluding your role as a chair at the end of the month after a 3-year tenure. And I prepared some remarks and from the team side, but also the GSB wanted to recognize your contribution to GI and to all the work that has been done over the course of the last 3 years with the GSSB. So I will start with my remarks and then also invite the colleagues from the GSB, Rebecca and Jeff, to come in here. So, as I said, today I'd like to recognize you, Carol, as our departing chair. Your tenure really has been marked by a significant standard-setting achievement and, importantly, a deep commitment to multi-stakeholder collaboration. Over the course of your tenure, you have helped strengthen the GI standards as a cornerstone of the global reporting system. And that was really front and center to how you have engaged with this role and with your mandate. We've done a significant amount of standard setting work. We've approved during your tenure the GI 101 biodiversity, the GI 14 mining, the GI 102 and 103 climate change and energy. And the GSB has overseen a very significant project portfolio during the last 3 years, with more than 20 topic standards under review and 4 new sector standards in the making. Under your leadership, we also reviewed the sector program. We had concluded the pilot, and we needed to look at, first evidence on how we were meeting the demands that have led to the program in the first place. And we have continued to then look at how to future-proof this important addition to the sector, to the standards approach and system by developing the building blocks for the compact sectors, or compact sector standards. You've worked with us also on research, not surprisingly, I think, given your background as an academic, but I would want to highlight the work that we've done with you on sustainability reporting in the public sector, where you have made very substantive contributions based on your expertise in that area. You were also absolutely instrumental in shaping the GSB positions on the need for a unified and coherent global reporting system, and importantly, the role that the GI standards fulfill within that system. All of this you achieved based on your vast network, I think, and experience. And you've come to the role with a network that you really leveraged to the benefit of the GSB mandate and GI overall. Your network extends to many countries, institutions, regulator types, standard setting bodies. And I think you've looked at this network in your role very much to ensure that the GI standards are enhanced in a way that they're globally relevant and practical for organizations and meaningful to all stakeholders. One of the defining features, I think, of your leadership and commitment here has been this very concerted effort to build an understanding with key stakeholders of the basic proposition of GI reporting, that organizations must understand and account for the impacts that they have on people, communities, economy, and the environment. And that this was not only a duty that was relevant in the here and now, but for generations to come. You've translated this perspective into strengthening the dialogue with many standard setters around the world. I would highlight in particular the Asia-Pacific region with the colleagues in New Zealand, Japan, Korea, Australia. And you really looked at encouraging deeper engagement with the GI standards and the broader concept of impact-based reporting. These conversations have led to meaningful collaborations. In Japan, for example, we had discussions with the Sustainability Standards Board. We visited them and it opened pathways for cooperation and helping organizations better identifying risks and opportunities. And a lot of what you have spearheaded here will result, I have no doubt, in very tangible standard compatible outcomes in the future. Another key feature of your tenure has been the alignment across the global sustainability reporting ecosystem. You came into the role when the European Union and importantly, the Commission and EFRAG were in the midst of implementing the CSRD. And you've worked very closely with us on the staff level and the partners at EFRAG to support alignment between the European standards and the GI standards, and doing that in a way that would reduce complexity for companies and improve consistency for stakeholders who rely on sustainability information. There were other international bodies that you helped us engage with in the broader reporting and insurance landscape. There were tireless efforts, I think, to engage the colleagues at the International Sustainability Standards Board to facilitate that view of a comprehensive corporate reporting system that recognizes impacts, risks, and opportunities on equal footing, with the aim to have better reporting for stakeholders while being very conscious of resource implications for reporting. Your engagements also included the International Ethics Standards Board for Accountants, the International Public Sector Accounting Standards Board, and the International Auditing and Assurance Standards Board. And the aim here really was that you articulate loud and clearly was to ensure that sustainability reporting is supported by these important frameworks that are developed by those boards. And in this context, I would want to particularly highlight the key contributions that you've made to the IAASB assurance standard that strengthens confidence in sustainability disclosure and also specifically makes references to GRI reporting and impact reporting, and is included in this important. But your outreach did not stop with the standard setter types and international organizations in the accounting profession. You also worked with us to engage regulators and policy leaders, recognizing that effective sustainability reporting really depends on a constructive dialogue between standards and regulation. And we were in discussions with regulators in the US, Europe, India, China, Australia. And I think what you always put very central to this engagement was that the GI standards need to remain grounded in real-world regulatory development and practical application. If I take a step back and look at your tenure, I think what is very clear that sustainability reporting for you and for us all should be much more than just technical standards. The underlying assumption and idea is really that this is about trust, accountability, and understanding the real impacts organizations have on the world. And you've always reminded us that achieving that really requires a multi-stakeholder approach and collaboration at a global scale. And I think we're very thankful for these key features of our work to have had such a strong advocate for that all this time. So on behalf of everyone who benefits from stronger sustainability reporting, the companies, the investors, regulators, workers, civil society, the affected stakeholders, and future generations, I want to thank you for your leadership. And on behalf of me and the colleagues at GI, thank you for the countless hours, advice, the technical reviews on quick turnarounds, late evening and early morning calls, sign-offs at the very last minute, and really coming to the role with dedication, energy, and conviction to make a difference. Congratulations on a very impactful tenure, and thank you, Carol, for helping move the GI standards and sustainability reporting at large forward. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to say something, but I think you mentioned that Rebecca and Jeff wanted to say something, so I'll keep quiet for now.
Thank you. So, Carol, just to add to the very, very long list of achievements during your tenure, all of us really, current and past GSSB members, wanted to thank you for your leadership and commitment to the cause of the GSSB and, of course, the GRI. You have improved the GSSB work, built partnerships, and protected the remit and scope of the GSSB. But at the same time, you have fostered collaboration and a collegial, welcoming, relaxed, and friendly board. So it has been a pleasure for all of us to work with you. Thank you. We will miss you.
Thank you.
All righty. And Yes, thank you, Carol. If you'll indulge me for a moment. So we're bringing forward a resolution today on this topic. During Carol's tenure as chair, she demonstrated a strong commitment to the mission, vision, and values of the GRI and the Global Sustainability Standards Board. Carol helped strengthen key initiatives and foster collaboration amongst GSSB members, staff, and stakeholders. Through her leadership, she guided the GSSB in advancing its work program and navigating important opportunities and challenges while maintaining the GSSB's integrity and stewardship. She has generously contributed her time, insight, and enthusiasm in service of GRI, the GSSB, and the broader sustainability reporting community. The GSSB extends its sincere appreciation and gratitude for her dedication and service. And just on a more personal note, I would share that in a very short 3-year period from my seat, that Carol has really left an indelible mark on the GRI and the GSSB. And on me personally, I in our working together as chair and vice chair, which has been my honor and privilege. So with that, does the GSSB approve this resolution of appreciation and thanks to outgoing chair Carol Adams?
Yes.
Approved.
Lovely. Thank you so much. And back to you, Carol.
Well, thank you first of all to Bastian and your colleague directors of standards. It's been a real pleasure to work with you all. Your technical expertise, your professionalism, and your genuine willingness to take on board a broad range of stakeholder views have been the foundation of the achievements that we've had together in standard setting. And importantly, and I hope not to be taken for granted by GRI, these achievements rely on the voluntary input of global multi-stakeholder experts, the members of this standards board, and through technical expert groups that you have brought together and consultation responses that you analyse with rigour. It is through these collective efforts and those of this board, the GSSB, that the GRI standards remain world-leading, yet achievable, resulting in our continued ability to attract high-quality applicants to the GSSB and technical expert groups despite the huge workload. Everyone on this call has contributed to our success. And I want to thank GSSB members for speaking out and for your comments on draft exposure drafts and draft standards between meetings. And I especially want to commend you for the respect you show each other and the multi-stakeholder consensus reaching approach. And thank you also to GRI members and GRI staff who have joined me in meetings with standard setters, regulators, and the GPPC to increase understanding of GRI standards and how they might best serve reporters and users. Thanks to Emmanuel Faber and his colleagues at the ISSB and technical staff at the IFRIS Foundation for engaging with us and taking the time to understand our different missions and methods, and for working with us to better understand and articulate how our standards complement each other. I think it is vital for reporters and report users that this work continues. Thanks to Patrick de Cambour and Chiara Del Pret for all your efforts to align the ESRS with our global standards, and to the International Auditing and Assurance Standards Board for hearing us on the need to emphasize the assurance of processes in ISSA 5000 to address whether organizations are reporting on the most significant impacts, not just whether the data they are reporting is accurate. I hope the voices of the GSSB members and your innovation will be heard, recognized, and acted upon in influencing GRI strategy and engagement, and the place of the GSSB within GRI as you take on future challenges. I've really enjoyed this work and the precious time that I've spent with you all, and I am proud of what we've achieved together, both with the GRI standards and the relationships we have together, because there's a lot of you been working in different regions and engaging with stakeholders. So we've built these relationships with key stakeholders together, and I know you will keep up the excellent work, and I look forward to hearing all about the successes in the future. So thank you all. Thanks to Jeff and Rebecca for your work, for your words also. Each of you individually, it's been a real pleasure to work with all of you. Thank you. And I think with that, we are finished with the public part of the meeting. Thank you all. If you could close this off, Gillian, we'll move into the session. Thank you.
We will do that.